Welcome to the Muskegon Channel. It's Andy O'Reilly along with Connie Nesbary today, and we are at the Norton Shores Public Library, and we are here to talk about a radio documentary that Connie has done, and it is going to run anywhere it'll take it, really, a public radio station, and it's all around criminal sexual conduct and what needs to change. I've seen some of the work you've done. I mean, you're pretty vocal on Facebook. You're out and about in the community. And before we get started on the whole topic here, take a pleasantry along for me. Back to your husband and tell him congratulations on the big award for Muskegon Community College.
Oh, thanks. Yeah,
I'm sure he's very proud. Dale is the president out at MCC. And to be the best community college in the state, you can't ask for more.
Right.
Right? So congratulations to Dale. You take that back for me.
Yeah.
Tell me about this radio documentary you've got.
Well, I'll tell you how it got started.
Okay.
A couple years ago, Paul Billings and I co-hosted some shows on his station for a week, and we got people to interview, and I really had fun with that.
Paul's a great guy.
Yeah. So
Love
then we
the guy.
tossed around ideas. What else could we do? And I wrote a grant. He wrote a grant. He got his.
Yeah.
We got this grant to do this 4-hour documentary. So he asked me to do it, and he wanted it on criminal sexual conduct. And he had 4 questions that he wanted answered. Why is it such a secret? Why is it so prevalent? What can we do about it? That kind of thing. What treatments and consequences should happen? Well, last spring, I interviewed 22 people. So I had 22 hours of taped interviews.
Wow.
That I had to cut down to 4.
Tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know. I go for about 10, 12 minutes on these things, and it's like, whoa, man.
Right.
It's tough.
Yeah. And I had so much good stuff, And so I kind of froze for a couple months because I was like, oh, how am I going to cut this down?
Right.
But once I started doing it, I found different themes and just really good sound bites, of people. And so I have 3 or 4 people on each hour talking about specific things. So the first one was survivor healing journeys. And it's all about how survivors of child sexual abuse or sexual assaults, rapes, human trafficking, whatever, there's a whole range of criminal sexual conduct. And criminal sexual conduct, the definition of that is any unwanted sexual contact without consent or obtained through the use of force, threat of force, intimidation, or coercion. Yeah. So anyway, so the first one's on survivors, and they talk about how they've healed, what's helped them, what they're doing now that's really creative, starting writing books, writing plays, talking at colleges. The one person started a radio show out of California, and the National Association of Adult Survivors of Child Abuse organization that's international now. And and one of them started a health program and a Beautiful Shame campaign. So that's the first segment. The second one is talking about changing our language and culture. And that has Rebecca O'Connor, the Vice President of Public Policy at RAIN, which is the Rape and Incest National Network. And then Sunshine O'Connor, they're not related. She's out in Oregon, and she's written children's books that help parents talk to kids about sexual abuse.
It's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, parents have a hard time. I remember when my dad tried to have the talk with me, and I can't imagine having to have that talk about something the talk is natural, and it should happen.
Right.
It's awkward. It's uncomfortable. But to bring it to the next level of something that's so foreign and shouldn't happen, that makes it even tougher.
Then to have your child speak up and say, oh, Uncle Joe or somebody's doing this to me, that really freaks a parent out sometimes. Right.
Yeah.
Because then you're like, oh, what am I going to do about it?
Right.
And Sunshine's books, it's Damsel in Defense, series of books. They have a parent guide with it. So if your child starts talking about something, steps to take and what to do. Then we also talked to Ebony Tucker, who is from the National Alliance to End Sexual Violence. And all 3 of them talk about what needs to change in our language and culture. We need to stop the victim blaming. We need to believe victims, because it's horribly difficult to come forward with something like this And then most victims, get shamed, they get ridiculed, they get intimidated. And so, but also on the other side too, not calling offenders monsters and evil, because they're not. They're your brother, they're your uncle, they're your coach, they're, it can be anybody. And so we're trying to change the language because we want people to be able to discuss this, and for people who are offending to be able to come forward and get help without feeling all that shame.
Yeah.
And so that's the second hour, which is playing yesterday and today.
Okay.
The third one, which will be next week, is human trafficking, raising awareness and changing perspectives. And this, I interviewed the executive director of the Chicago Alliance Against Sexual Exploitation. They've done a lot of research on human trafficking.
Yeah.
And they have looked at the Nordic model out of Sweden, and that is where victims are not looked at as, or women are not looked at as criminals, but as victims in this. And the men who are purchasing sex are looked at as the criminals. And they're in Illinois, they've passed some legislation now similar to the Nordic model, where men are getting huge fines, like $10,000 if they're caught purchasing sex. And in Sweden, they found that after a few years of this, the younger men started acknowledging that this isn't okay to buy someone for sex,
right,
to pay for this.
Yeah.
It's a form of slavery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. So that's the third hour, which will play next week. And then the last one is law enforcement and legislation. And that's where we talked to a former police officer about the education and training that law enforcement needs more of. And she's written a book, The Cry No One Heard. We talked to a couple of victims who've gone through different things. One of them had a good experience with the police, one not so good. Wendy Goodread, the speaker there, the survivor, she is one of the people that had a rape kit that wasn't tested for 20 years. And all of a sudden they call her at work and they say, "Hey, we found out, we tested your kit and we found out." And she had no clue that this was going to happen.
Wow.
And she just totally freaked out because, here's 20 years you've gone by in your life thinking this is never going to get solved.
Sure.
And then, and her kids were teenagers, and all of a sudden she's in the news, and
it's all back. Yeah,
and it's all back. So that's interesting. And then we talked to Senator Stephen Beda of Michigan's District 9, and he talks about his work with Senate Bill 52 to eliminate the statute of limitations. So that's kind of a nutshell of the program. And I'm really proud of it because it's not blaming anyone. It's just starting the conversation and talking about solutions. And we need to think about this and think about that. And so
I want to go back a little bit because and I don't think you're kind of but you said that you're not suggesting that there shouldn't be a penalty for some of these things. Okay, because you say you can't really say Uncle Joe's a monster and you can't really say this guy's bad, but there should be some kind of.
Oh yes, we talk about what consequences need to be in place, and one of the themes that comes out of this that most people say is the person has to be accountable.
Sure.
And one of the problems is they need to be stopped because a lot of times the person doesn't even realize, maybe they've grown up in a situation like this. It feels normal to them.
Yeah.
And so they need to be stopped first. But then they need to be held accountable.
Yeah.
And I did some research on other cultures before I put this show together. And in Africa, they call it Ubuntu. In Native American societies, they call it restorative justice circles, where they would, they couldn't afford to lose someone's skills and talents
Sure.
from the society. So they would sit in a circle and they would talk to the person and they would say, "You're better than this. Why are you doing this?"
Right.
Just like a confrontation for alcohol or anything
Sure.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they would try to figure out how to have this person repay the society for the damage.
Yeah.
Because especially child sexual abuse, that does, it's a lifelong consequences that it has for the victims.
Yep.
And unfortunately, some offenders have more than one victim too. They tend to put themselves in places where there are children. They tend to be coaches or, your Sunday school teacher or, the Santa Claus downtown, And I'm not saying all Santa Clauses.
I was going to say, no, don't worry about all Santa Clauses.
No.
Yeah.
But
be vigilant.
And again, this is probably 5 to 10% of the population is offending. But the problem is when they have more than one victim, the number of victims. Yeah. So.
And how long did this take you?
Oh my goodness!
This was over a year of work.
Oh yeah. I've been working on this for about a year.
Have you done a documentary type thing like this before?
No.
No. So it's a first time shot.
Yeah.
You're growing. You're expanding.
Well, I had so much fun with this.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of doing more podcasts, definitely.
Are you?
But I think what I want to do now is a podcast. I'm going to call it Upbeat Minutes because 103.7 The Beat helped me out. But so to honor them, but I want to just interview people about how they're being courageous and how they're being creative, and I don't
know anybody that's got a podcast or a website or anything that would put that on. If you were interested, I mean,
yeah, I am.
Tell me about this. If they've missed the shows, or it may because Paul's got a great website, but I know his signal's a little small. And we go a little bit bigger than that. Will they be able to find these on Paul's website, The Beat?
Yes.
Okay.
At the end of it's going to run this September.
Okay.
It's Mondays and Tuesdays on 103.7 The Beat at 2:00, and at 3:00 it's Mondays and Tuesdays on M106.1 FM.
Yep.
After September, we're releasing all of these because we got a grant to do this.
Sure.
We're releasing it to any non-commercial station that wants it.
Okay.
So all the NPR stations. We already have requests. I already have requests to go speak at colleges, and they're going to bring it there. So I'm excited. I may be on a road trip for a while.
Look at you. I'll call Dale. We'll hang out.
You'd like that.
That'd be awesome,
especially if football's included.
Yeah, there you go. This is amazing. And I love to see people take chances. I love to see people do communication things like I do, to do a podcast or a radio show or a documentary or any of that kind of things. That's great. And to address a subject that's this taboo and this scary and this dark and this, we can't talk about that. It's part of healing and it's part of making things better.
Yeah, and that's one thing one of the speakers talks about is how, years ago people would say, oh, nobody can heal from alcoholism, that it's not possible.
Yeah, they can.
Yeah, they can. And so we have to believe that people can heal from being an offender as well. Yeah. Sure. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
And they have to be able to acknowledge, just with alcoholism,
Don't
you
I
have
ever.
to admit it first.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then you can work on the issues, so.
There you have it.
Yep.
If you're in Muskegon, make sure you tune in to 103.7 The Beat. Keep an eye on his website as well, and watch for Connie. She's going to be all over you're going everywhere.
I hope so.
We just launched a rocket out of Muskegon right there. Connie Nesbary.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming on today. We'll put the links right here on the Muskegon channel, and of course, Connie Nesbary going to keep up the good work and follow this documentary. It's going to be interesting. Thanks for your few minutes today, and good luck on the entire. You started a whirlwind here.
I hope so.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
All the links are right here on the Muskegon channel.